I never have them. Bring it from my car into my office and forgot.
Over prepared.
Right? I always have to borrow Jody's, right? Stylish.
Should be good.
Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Ms. McCouse?
Here.
Mr. Olson?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Erkins?
Here.
Mr. Restigar?
Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Seeing none, moving forward. I know Tim yesterday was sick, so he's still sick. All right, move on to the approval of minutes dated July 25th, 2024.
Move to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Any? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. On to the monthly activity and financial report, Cody and Stephanie.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Chair, members of the board, another great month that we have to report. A couple photos that I took out of the slides last month or so, because we didn't have quite as many photos, but we do have some photos to share this month. Most of it was from IAVM, so all three of these are from the IAVM Venue Connect conference that was held in Portland, Oregon at the very end of July. Several of our team members attended, myself, Director of Sales, Ali Rabordi, Julie Rising, and a few other, the entire sales team actually attended this as well. There was a sales track that Ali has done a great job of getting that going on behalf of the Convention Center Committee for IAVM, and then instituting a track that was very specific to sales, which I thought had some really, really good content and something that's been missing from the conference. On the picture there on the far left, that's actually Kent Holtzinger, who's a local from Freeman. He helped on the Freeman event that we hosted here a while ago, but he was also a speaker for the conference itself, and he was talking about trends in live events, and it was a really good session. It was actually a two-part session. He's got a sticker on the front of his laptop there. You can't see that actually says Boise on it. So he was representing Boise. There was actually quite a bit of representation from Boise, just with Ali on panels. I took over as director of Region 4 at the end of this conference. And then Ali was on a panel and then helped also kind of navigate one of the sessions, the roundtable sessions that we talked about. So a good presence from Boise, all in all through
Those
Portland.
llamas?
Those are llamas. That was my new friend I made in Venue Connect. So everybody got a chance to go get a picture with two very tame llamas. Some people were brave enough to put the carrot in their mouth and let it eat it out of their mouth. That was not me.
Oh, real? Those are real llamas.
Those are real live llamas, yes. Alpacas, llamas, I don't know. One was a llama, I think one was an alpaca, to be honest, so I don't know the difference. But overall, it was kind of a fun little part at the one of the closing receptions for people to get photos with the llamas. A few staff updates here. We are in the middle of conducting and finishing Peak Performance, which is a new review system that we use. So basically we sharpened our pencil on the annual review process. We gave it a name called Peak Performance. I want to recognize our HR department for their efforts into this. What this was is historically we've done reviews at the end of December, at the end of the fiscal year, or in December when the fiscal year was over. That happens to be one of our busier times with holiday parties. A lot of staff going home for the holidays. So there was a crunch time to try to get those done, and then not having some staff back for the holiday time bled into January, sometimes February. So one of the initiatives I did as a new executive director was move the review period into July, and it's going to now go from July to July. We had kind of a shortened window because obviously the last reviews were conducted in December. The team did a really great job. We've shortened the amount of fields to fill in because we were noticing there was duplicate information getting kind of repeated in the different fields of the review section. This is a really condensed but effective way to review people, I believe, and we're getting really good feedback from the leadership as well as the staff on that changing of the time as well as the way that we're doing the reviews itself. We're currently sitting at 221 total staff, and that's about 90 full-time, actually exactly 90 full-time of that percentage there. That's our highest number of full-time. We continue to move some people from part-time into full-time for several different reasons. Some of it the needs of the business, the growth within departments, technology, obviously the IT department or technical services department growing. So again, full-time positions have been added in several of those locations. 2024-2025 budget season is here. So Jody, you'll be getting an email from me shortly. I'll be starting to set up the finance committee meetings in September. The team has already started putting in fixed costs into Questica. And then we're going to spend September, the first part of September, really working on forecasting and all of the stuff that's based on the revenues that will be coming in. Right now, this team is in the system and working diligently to the budget season. On the events, we had 12 total events in July. It was actually up 3, which is something to pay attention to as you look at revenues, but we were actually up 3 total events from 2023. Some of the larger events were Cradle Point Erickson Sales Summit, American Meteorological Society, and then we had a visit from Greater Topeka partnership visit that the city helped with. But we weren't actually involved in as the convention center, but it was another event that we brought in a sister kind of city to look at what Boise's doing well. And there was a lot of information sharing that was happening at that event. Front and center, we did, and I know Julie spoke about this last month, but our Toast POS system is fully rolled out. And then the team is very much right now in the process of doing interviews and staffing up for fall. That goes for operations as well. This is our time that we get ready for September, October, November with all the events we have coming down the road. So we're going to be participating in a job fair here at the end of the month, or the first of next month at BSU. That'll allow us to get some more BSU students. That's always a very effective way. We get a lot of recruitment from people that are already working here, telling friends, and then with new students coming on, that word of mouth really does help get kind of the staffing levels up. For that 240 is usually what we're about when we head into the fall season. So we're fairly close. We don't have a lot to pick up, but it's that daytime. I think I've spoke about this before with the board, that daytime need when students are in classes. We're still some bigger lunches and things like that, or tends to be where we want to get additional support in on the staff level. On the sales side, I'll leave that for the update between Carrie and Allie. They've got some great slides planned for the board, so more to come on that. So you'll notice the orange line here is our revenues in 2024. So while we did 3 more events in July than we did last year, this is the first time all year that I've noticed, and it's on the slide there, that we've actually had less in revenues than we had the prior year. So this is the first time this has happened. Some of that has to do with Botany. Botany was a very large conference that took place in July and really drove up the revenue numbers, but we're not too far off. Pacific Northwest Economic Region was another 2025. Those are 2 larger conventions that fell into July of last year that really drove the revenues up a little bit. So while we did 3 more events than we did the prior year, we actually did a little less in revenue. If I highlight over this, you can see those years and what the revenues have been. Going back to 21, that was post-pandemic. Coming out of pandemic, 224,000, 603 in 2022, and 612 in 2023, and then down to 540 in 2024. So again, not terribly off, but it is the first time that we're seeing a little of that cooling off. Some of that just has to do with the nature of what events were booked in July as well, though. Questions on that? Gross profit and our gross margins continue to be very healthy. The last month, with in particular the lower revenues, we do a lot of projects in the summer as well. I actually noticed that number came down quite a bit, not quite a bit, but it came down and impacted that percentage on the gross margin a little bit from last month. Still, we're above goal. Really, the fourth quarter, that starts to climb back up as we do as many events as we do in the fourth quarter. So I think we'll be well above budget, or not well above budget, well above goal for the end of the fiscal year for that. That's what we're pacing. Lodging room revenues. This is where things start to get interesting when you start to take a look at the data. In particular, June was down 6% from the prior year. Some of that has to do from the revenue side about ADRs, and I'll get into that in about 2 slides. In particular, if you go back to June of 2023, Far West Soccer really drove ADRs at a very high rate. So those lodging room revenues within the district were record high, as you can see on the chart there. And then this year, again, down about 6% from the prior year. I'll speak to that as we get into these future slides here, because the data starts to show what's been going on. So what's interesting, room demand was actually up. So room demand in July of 2024, up a little bit. So now as you're noticing, those revenues are really driven from what's ADR, because if demand was up and the revenues were down, then it has to be something's going on. And as you guys have looked at this slide for the last few months, they've been pacing right next to each other all the way. And I mentioned this last month when I was reporting it, because I had seen the data from the STR report. This is the first time there's a separation, and a significant separation. I'll just highlight over this so you can kind of see what I'm looking at. The occupancies were exactly the same from prior year, literally 79.7% from 23 to 24, but the ADRs were $15 in difference. That's significant when you have as many rooms in the district as we do that they're collecting on a monthly basis. That $15 adds up. And so again, that revenue is why those numbers are coming in more down on the revenues, but up on demand, but a lower ADR.
How did it compare to 22? Because it looked like 22, we've also fallen below those numbers the past couple slides.
I'd have to go look at the ADR from that number, but I think it was a climb up. I know 2023 is the record ADR ever on the district on the books for that $175 number. 22 was probably closer, but it was somewhere between the two. I know that. I don't know off the top of my head without that data in front of me. But I can report back for next month on that, what that looked like.
And have you heard anything from the hotel partners regarding this? Is it just,
They're feeling like they're kind of taking, we did just actually meet with another hotel partner yesterday. That's been kind of finishing over the past 2 months of meeting with all the hotel partners. We're hearing a lot of the same feedback in particular. They're very strong on Tuesdays and Wednesdays because of corporate demand. If we can get groups in that Sunday through Thursday, I think that's the opportunity, but all of them are taking a very similar approach to what they had this last year with room blocks, which is a bit down about 20% from what it was prior to the pandemic, is what we're noticing across the board. Could be up to 25% on some of those. Where we're really trying to get strategic is identify where the opportunities, whether it's any given time of year or given time of month, that we have opportunity to get strategic, move some of our local events into the times where the hotels are not looking for that demand. And then try to drive the demand from the convention side in areas where we can get the blocks and get the participation. But overall, I think it was a very collaborative group. We've met with all of the hoteliers in the downtown core, and there's a collaborative approach to the way that we want to do this going forward. I think that those meetings were insightful for myself as a new executive director, but also just the opportunity about picking up a phone when we hear that this is their number. If we get stuck and we're 30 rooms short, every single one of them said, pick up a phone and call us. So I think there's some inroads that we can make into those blocks. We did learn a little bit, and I spoke about it last month, about some of the buyout opportunities with Hotel Renegade that exist that might give us more opportunity for future group blocks and larger for a full buyout in a hotel. I think that's going to get us back into that competitive range a little bit, and I'll let Carrie and Ali speak to that.
yeah, I do.
We have these slides that show how many rooms there are.
Total rooms within.
I'm just wondering, because when it shows
Yeah.
the average occupancy, presumably,
There's a supply number that goes with that.
right, so presumably we actually have more rooms being rented, right? Because
Correct.
I'm assuming, we're getting more hotels that are being opened,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, I can show you the room supply. Actually, that's something I can report on for next month, to show you that room supply has gone up a little bit. It stayed almost in line because occupancies obviously stayed the same as they were prior year. So there was more demand and about the same amount that there was last year with those additional rooms that came on. So we stayed similar occupancy even with the additional rooms that came on. This is a static slide that stays static throughout the year. Again, I'll dig into this as we get closer to the end of 24, but it still is very much pacing. That last month is going to change that down and downtick that ADR just a little bit, but I don't think we overreact to that. I think at the end of the day, those forecast numbers are pretty solid. Future booked business. This is again a sales numbers report. I've explained this to the board members, and it's just one that I'll probably keep walking through, because for me, when I first looked at the slide, I didn't quite understand it. And then as Ali walked me through it, I was like, got it. And it's actually a very good slide for us to be able to track how we're doing from prior year. So that light blue teal number there on the far left is our future booked economic impact. The current month, meaning from this last month of July, they booked 1.6 million in future booked economic impact. And that's going forward, not just within the year. Right now on the year to date from prior, they were at 13.3, this year 13.5. So again, we're pacing a little ahead of booked future economic impact on the books. And then that goal is 19.5. This is a new goal for the sales team, and a metric we're using versus leads, and just trying to keep busy work. We're actually trying to move the needle in the areas that matter the most to the district. Future booked revenue is the next one over right next to it, that column right next to it on the same slide, or the same column there, or the same picture. Future booked revenue, 650,000, and that's current month to date looking forward. Last year at this time, year to date, they were at 3.3. And then this year to date, they're sitting almost at 3.7. And that's a goal of 4.75. So again, feeling strong that we're still pacing well, but we're starting to see a leveling off, as we've mentioned multiple times over the past few months. Future booked room nights, same story. Current month, again, 3,100 plus. Year to date, they're at 20, or year to date prior, they were at 22,500. Right now, they're about 1,000 above that for year to date goal of about 34,000 total future room nights booked. And those are future years all the way out. So that's just work they're doing now to put stuff onto the calendar for future years. Event attendance, again, something that we can't really control, but we do pay close attention to because it can drive the economic impact number one direction or another. But we're noticing on the July side, the attendance was down just slightly, not terribly. It was about 700 total people from the prior year. Botany last year drove a big portion of that because it's a larger conference and really made an impact on that attendance number. Economic impact, I spoke about this, that we're kind of using another calculation that really inflated the number a little bit. So we moved our goal with it up to 41 million. We're still pacing to hit that goal at this point, but last year's July economic impact was about 500,000 less, 2.5 or 2.2, so 2.7. We did actually a couple more conferences or conventions this year, even though we did less events last year, more events this year, more conventions, but smaller. So some of that's what's driving those numbers. On overall guest experience, I put in a number here that we talked about last month, which our response rate, we cut this off at July just to make sure, because at that point, by the time I'm reporting in August, the July numbers were done getting any, we get some trickling in, I guess, some surveys that trickle in after the fact. So I'm going to draw the line kind of on the prior month for response percentage going forward. We're getting about 36% of response rate. And that's historically, when I went back and looked at numbers under Pat, 30 to 40% was our response rate. We had an additional 1.4 rating, and then all of the others from last month went into the 5 category. So again, we're pacing very well with a weighted average of 4.92 of those responses. Some challenges and some strategies. Shortage of financial professionals in the local area is one of our challenges that way. And I know I've talked to the finance committee, I've talked to board chair about that. We've had to continue to get aggressive in trying to hire for positions within the finance team. We've started using a staffing agency and recruiters. We've used recruiters for some of the positions we've actually gotten filled, but we've actually are going as far as hiring people that are already currently employed at other jobs to try to kind of pull from those skilled employees. And we just did that with a payroll specialist in particular. So this continues to be something that I know Jody can speak to if you'd like, to the board, where he had talked to Ide Bailey. They're about 200 accountants short within the Treasure Valley area right now. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And so that's information that is just obvious of what we're struggling with right now, in particular from the finance side. Getting people that are looking for jobs, sometimes are the ones that maybe don't have the same skill set that we're looking to match up to right now, because if they are and they're that short, there's some challenges in why that they're not getting work in particular. But we continue to do our due diligence and looking down all the avenues. And I think that Stephanie and the team is doing a good job. We're very excited about our new team member, Mandy White, who will be starting with us on Monday. So she's got 3 years of Paylocity experience from payroll. That's the payroll software we use. So she's going to be able to come in right out the gate and get acclimated and start.
Where did you come from?
Cascadia Healthcare.
I'm like, am I allowed to say that?
I'm going to say it. So yes.
She's not here yet.
Sorry.
Cascadia Healthcare was where she was employed prior. So
Thank you.
the event industry continues to normalize. That's a word that I heard a lot when I was in Portland in particular. And it's a word that I hear Ali use quite a bit with some of the hoteliers are like, are you seeing a cooling off? We're really seeing a normalizing is what we're starting to see. And that's that pre-pandemic level compression. The post-pandemic compression is over at this point in time. And so everything that we're seeing is the new world. It tracks very close to where 2019 and on would have been. But I think we had some inflated numbers in 22 and 23. So it looks like there's a little bit of a cooling off happening. And it is, other than it's an inflated, I think, demand that was happening in 22 and 23.
What about costs, especially food costs? Are those?
We've been able to manage food costs very well, at least from our side, in the way that we do our purchasing. Some of that has to do with just the way that we manage product and when we buy at certain times a year. So we still struggle with it, but actually I would say it's something that I've been very impressed with how our food and beverage department has managed food costs in particular. Some of that goes when we bought equipment like the cryogenically, or not cryogenic, but the deep freezing of
Cryogenics.
the micro level versus macro level of freezing food is what we have the ability to do. Is now, instead of having larger crystals, it freezes it almost immediately, and we're able to preserve meats and certain foods longer and fresher than that they would have in the past, which gives us opportunity to buy at a time when markets are lower and control that quality along with the cost. Staffing related costs continues to rise. So this is one, as I'm working on budgets, we're continuing to see, even in the health insurance, 12% increases Yeah, so we're looking at new cost savings, where areas where we can do revenue generating. We spend quite a bit in parking, employee parking. I'm working with HR on a bus program to see, right now, I know VRT is offering for $6 an employee a year. They can get a bus pass, yes. So for our team, about $1,500 would get everybody a bus pass. What will that do is reducing our cost, our parking, not filling up the garages as much. And so we're continuing to look at that because we spend close to 6 figures in parking a year just for staff. And that's only us covering half the cost of our full-time employees. Half of the cost gets paid for by the employee and the other half paid for by the center.
But you said health insurance, but what about other insurance?
Like I heard on the dental side, it's only a 2% increase. So it's kind of all over the place, at least at this point in time. And I'm getting
Our overall insurance. And we're looking at that.
for just coverage.
Yeah.
That I'm still waiting for that number to come in, so we're working on all those for budget reasons, but I've seen the 2 for dental was at 2 to 4%. It was closer to 2 is what they told me to budget for, and then on the insurance, 12 to 14 on the insurance side for health insurance. So again, we're continuing to look at opportunities. One of the goals for Julie this year is to try to find opportunities for more efficiencies or revenue generation. So a lot of that we get from IAVM, and we can kind of listen to counterparts, what's worked, some self-promoted events, or how that they've been generating more revenue or got more efficient.
Madam Chair.
Yeah,
Cody, who's the dental carrier?
Delta Dental.
Thank you.
so you're still seeing some cost increase. Are you seeing any resistance to pricing from customers? I guess maybe that's a alley thing coming up, but.
Yes, I mean, there's a couple different parts. So I think Ali will speak to more of kind of the hotel rates or getting group rates at a certain, that's a challenge. The cost that we're seeing, we get pushback obviously from the price sensitive. It seems like on the locals are feeling the most of it, in particular from their events getting increases. Nonprofits in particular that are having to absorb those costs and try to find ways to generate as much money as they were prior. Not getting heavy pushback, but when our surveys, that is one of the questions we ask in our survey, and it's probably our lowest score would be, what is the value or the cost of the center? That's where we get 3 stars sometimes in particular, because people are feeling that we're expensive. And we try really hard to make sure we're providing a premier service for what we offer, in particular for the convention experience. With that, I'll stand for questions and turn it over to Stephanie for the financial report.
Any other questions for Cody at this time? All right, Stephanie?
All right, good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members.
Madam Chair, sorry.
Yep.
I'd like to go back to this staffing in the finance. What are our open positions?
Well, that depends on how you want to look at it. Previously, there were 7 positions that were in the finance team. Since I've been on board, we have 3 now. I will say with great pride that 3 of us have been able to get our financials out in a much more timely and efficient manner than the 7 did. So my perception of it is I'd much rather have a stronger, smaller, efficient team that is paid well. And since we are running into this compaction issue with regards to positions and, payroll, the staffing levels of things, that's my take on it. So we have moved very slow and methodically in the finance team. And of course, some of those challenges with regards to the recruiting.
So the person starting Monday will be 4th?
That will be 4.
So chief accountant type, controller type,
I'm still in the works. I will tell you right now, on a day-to-day operational basis, I'm filling those roles. I'm in the trenches. We have identified one of our current employees who is payables, fixed assets, capital projects. She has been invaluable with regards to working with me and getting these month-end processes cleaned up and financials out on time. She could very easily do the job. I would much rather recruit from within than go outside.
So do we have a CPA on staff?
Not a CPA, I think Maria is a CPA.
She does have audit experience, and I mean, this is all future down the road, but she does have auditing experience. As far as CPA, I'm in close contact with our auditing firm at Bailey. So if there's any questions or concerns with regards to an internal process change, we run it by them.
And I'll speak to some of just as the executive director, what I've actually witnessed or seen. some of it's just as we onboarded other people that didn't last, in particular, the onboarding, we were missing some gaps there. Some of it Stephanie was still learning as she was onboarded in there and still learning what the processes were. Now with having somebody from Paylocity with that experience, there won't be that gap in trying to onboard in particular, but we are going to strengthen our onboarding, make sure there's training manuals. Those are things that just didn't exactly exist post-pandemic within the department when Stephanie took over. So, thank you.
Okay, all right. So with this, our fiscal management, this is year-to-date numbers. Cody's already shared with you the monthly. Our revenue for the Boise Center is $7.475 million. Our expenses are at 11.805. It's a deficit. We're running at about 4.3 million. We had budgeted for 4.87, so we're actually a little bit ahead, about $540,000 from what we had budgeted that loss to be. The district, the same. You can see that the transfers that have been moved over year to date, 5.3 million have been transferred over. These are our tax revenues. July's tax revenues came in at the 1.1, a little over $1.1 million. This is the fourth month where it has been short. We are short about 109 based upon what was budgeted. We are still on course though, if we were able to make the next 4 months at our budgeted amount to be able to hit the 10.8 million. That's what was forecasted. So again, space to a little cooling off. So
I'll just add, it's 11 million is what was budgeted there on the far right. That 10.8 is an adjustment based off of what we've seen actually come in along with the forecast on top on that second to left column there. So we are starting to see where we may be not hitting that 11 million forecasted budget. At this point, the whole first of the year outperformed budget, as you can see, and then the second half of the year has been under. So we're starting to see that leveling off.
Mainly due to ADR, or do you think occupancy ADR?
Both, a combination depending on the month.
So less than last year.
this is your transfer report. This just shows based upon the various years, our capital, our operating and our bond payment, the money that has been transferred for these specific. Again, it correlates to the income generated other than the taxes received. So the higher the transfer months indicates slower months at the center for revenues.
July.
This is again a income summary directly from the Clearwater dashboard. I did learn that one of the, it's a lot of numbers and I know analysis paralysis, we look at it. But if we take the book yield and we multiply that with the book value plus accrued, that is what our annualized income expected from this portfolio if we did nothing with it. So that's a little over $102 million. I know the board has asked for dividend income. So this was pulled again directly from the Clearwater report. As of July 31st, we're at $50,434. Those are earnings received from our shares.
Good, thank you.
Yes. This slide we talked about last month, and there was some questions with regards to total return, net of fees, income return, net of fees, price return, net of fees. It shows your prior month, prior quarter, prior year. Total return net of fees is the comprehensive measure of an investment's performance. So it takes into account all the gains and losses, including the fees. Your income return and net fees is focuses specifically on income generated by the investment, and your price returns focuses solely on the capital appreciation or depreciation. So those are the difference between those three columns there. Again, this is the duration of the investment. It shows where things are at and how far out. You've got your how far out these bonds are these investments are. So you've got 3.3 for the 3 to 4 years, or 4 million at the 2 to 3 years. This is I included this just so that way, again, idea or discussion about future projects where we need to look at moving these investments, maybe exploring with Clearwater and bringing them that timeline, condensing it a little bit, bringing it up closer.
Just no, go ahead.
Like at this point in time, the 2 million that's coming up, you're gonna just roll it
We just roll it back in.
into whatever formula you guys.
And then we kind of, that's a good question. As we continue to look at projects for the board, they would want to know if we want to do something more short term, then they might
Right.
invest those into that shorter term, which
Right,
isn't
right.
going to get you the same yield, but you're at least safe to then you're not going to pay the penalties if you did want to invest in the
Got it.
project.
This is a very static slide with the exception of the cash cell. And that right now we're sitting at $27.5 million. We keep our restricted funds at 250 and our stabilization fund, it has been set at 6 million. Any questions?
Any questions? With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'd move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on to other business. Ryan, ICA.
Hi guys, thanks. Appreciate you guys having me back. I will attest, being a CPA in the accounting profession, 25% shortage nationwide by the profession. So your struggle is well known across the valley and everywhere else. Tony asked me to come in and do a kind of a quarterly report. It's been a couple of months since the last one, so I'm going to bounce back and forth a little bit, kind of based on what we're kind of considering our fiscal year end. We're trying to look at data for you guys, kind of on a not a calendar year, but a fiscal year based on our opening date. And I've also got some data for the first 3 months of this year, which looks really, really positive. So we're excited about that. I did have a chance to sit down with Cody and kind of go through a full kind of review of a few of our items, kind of operationally, let him know where things are at. I know he's available for some of those questions if you'd like some additional details, but I'm going to hit the highlights today. In addition, I have kind of 2 sets of slides, my usual slides. And then based on the last event we did, Visit Boise put together a separate slide deck. There's like 3 or 4 slides. So kind of, some of it will be repetitive, but you'll start to see some of the data that we're able to get directly from Visit Boise, which is really helpful. I think you guys will like that. So. That one works. There we go. All right, operations. So I wanted to share at least kind of a broad overview where we are at. This is fiscal year ending 5/31. So really the first 12 months of operations. Budget wise, like any other first year business, we expected to lose money. We expect to lose about 84,000. We lost 77,000. So we had a positive variance of about $7,000. As you can see, we're way ahead on revenues. We had corresponding expenses that marked that. A lot of that really has to do with the success of our lesson program. Way more revenues on the lesson side than we expected. Also, way more employees required on the lesson side as the need, kind of arose for additional lessons. So that's been a positive. So what does that look like for this next year? So this is Q1. Looks great. We've had a lot of success the first 3 months, not only with events, but also with receiving some community grants. Numbers look fantastic. Again, we kind of budgeted to be about $20,000 ahead through the first quarter. Again, this data is through August 15th. So we're talking June, July, August 15th. Like I said, revenue's way ahead, which includes some grants. Expenses actually looking better than we had projected. Right now, we're $350,000 ahead of our budget for the fiscal year. I do expect that to normalize a little bit simply because we had some large grants that came in the first couple of months. But overall, this is exactly what we wanted to see. It's great.
Madam Chair, what sort of grants and from whom?
So we have, as part of our operation, we have a foundation, Greater Boise Aquatics Foundation, and they help support our lesson program, which is run by the charitable wing of the facility. So the Greater Boise Aquatic Foundation runs our lesson program, for example. We've got, for example, Blue Cross has provided us with a grant to help provide, lessons at no cost. We've gotten a local grant from a local foundation. We've gotten a grant from a foundation down in Las Vegas that works with education and education youth in the pool. So we're out there actively trying to find grant dollars to help support the programming function of the facility.
Who does grant writing?
What's that?
Who does grant writing for you?
Just our board. We've got three, I'm not on the board of the foundation, so we've got three other members of the board of the foundation. That's Melanie Rabaki, Josh Hoisington, and Jim Burns. So they've been pretty active in seeking other funding.
And then you earmark some of those dollars for no-cost lessons. for
Absolutely, yep.
Underprivileged children, is that right?
Sorry, what was that?
For underprivileged children, is that? how it works?
Correct.
And they just apply to you in order to?
Yeah, if anyone needs lessons, then they can contact the facility. They can talk directly with the facility director or a lesson coordinator. Again, our policy is that if a child is eligible for the free lunch program within the Boise School District, we're just asking them to provide that verification, and then we'll sign them up for lessons for free. We also have a lot of adults. Obviously, adults are not going to be eligible for free lunch programs since they're not in school, but we just work directly with them and find out what their financial need is, either provide the lesson for free or do a substantial discount on it. This is a slide I shared 2 months ago, but I wanted to repeat it because the data I'm going to show after it, I think is a great outlook for what this next year is going to look like. So our first fiscal year, we generated 3,000 hotel rooms. It created 1.5 million in direct impact, 2.8 million in total impact. The first 2.5 months of this year, slides help me. Here we go. So just July and August, we had one event in July that was smaller, another event in August, which was giant. But so far this year, direct impact 1.4, almost 1.5 million. Total impact 2.8 million. And 3,500 hotel rooms just in the first 3 months. So we had just a fantastic meet in August. This is the same event that we held last year called the Western Age Group Championships. Swimmers from the 17 Western states traveling here. We had 100 more participants than last year. So we had 630 was our count athlete wise. And then we averaged 600 spectators every single session. There are 2 sessions a day. Coaches, officials, you name it. It was astounding. It was a lot of fun. It's always a lot of work, but at the end of the day, it was a great event, provides exactly the type of event that we're looking for and bringing it in the Valley as best we can.
Where did that additional 100, is just that there's a growing, where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, my guess personally is that this is the second year in a row that we've held that event, which is rare. Usually this meet jumps from location to location. You may return to a location, but we are fortunate enough to hold it twice. Everyone enjoyed it so much last year, they wanted to come back. So we put the bid in, we won the bid. And I think that it just attracted more people to the event. So I think the job we did first year, last August of 23, created the increase in attendance in August of 24. I want to review upcoming events because like I said, we've held one large event, one small event to date, but we've got 9 more on the calendar for this fiscal year, and some of which will be, smaller meets in terms of travel people, but others will be much larger in terms of people traveling to the Valley. High school meet here coming in September. A lot of those will be local athletes, but we do have teams coming from both Eastern Idaho and Northern Idaho. The University of Idaho is actually hosting an invitational at our facility, so those will all be travel participants. We're really just renting the facility to them, and they'll run the event. We have a couple invitationals that our local team is hosting, one in January and another later on. You'll see that. And then in March, that Speedo Sectional Championships will be another large scale event with 500 to 600 swimmers, several parents and coaches that will travel down. Those are from typically 6 or 7 Western states that will attend that. As we go into March, the very next weekend, we have what's called the Northwest Age Group Sectional. So the first one we have in March is for kind of the older kids, kind of the 14 and overs. The next one is kind of the 14 and unders. So we're going to kind of getting 2 waves of kids, 2 waves of parents, 2 weekends in a row. So that'll be a busy week. Boise State's planning on their water polo tournament again in April. Again, Satu's hosting that invitational in May. And then we put a bid in with the help of Visit Boise, and we are the host of the United States Paralympic Nationals in the 3rd week of June, which is pretty exciting. That's not a big meet in terms of athletes. It's not going to make us any money. We may actually lose money on it, but to us, it's a stature thing. We're gonna hold national championships. It's actually a very, very cool event to see these participants. Some of these participants are, you know, don't have limbs or are blind or are deaf. Some are US Army veterans that are now that have lost a limb in battle and now they participate in sports. It's a very cool event to be at. We're excited. Just something great to put on a resume so it can help attract future events. And then we'll have another event in July. So that kind of falls into the following fiscal year, but I want to throw that up there because it's on our schedule. So again, very busy schedule. And based on what we've done the first 2.5 months of the year, we're excited what that means kind of going forward. I got a questions here, but I want to skip to this. We'll come back to questions, but I want to skip ahead to these. If I can get it to progress for me. He's going to switch over these slides that Visit Boise gave us. So kind of the protocol is when we have a meet, we reach out to all the teams, we find out where they're staying, we find out the number of nights, we ask, you know, how many hotel rooms they have. On our larger events, there's definitely some added guesswork in terms of, okay, we have this many spectators, we have this many officials, and we try to gather as much data as we can. But what we do is we push that to Visit Boise and they do call a sanity check, whatever you want. They look at the data and make sure that it's reasonable. Is this the correct number of hotel rooms? They cross-reference with their tick sheets, and they also create landing sites for us. So when we had this meet in August, a few weeks ago, there was a landing site in which they would go to our website. I'll use this one. Okay. And they could click on hotel links, or they could click on restaurants or things to do in Boise. And then they're able to track the data and see how many unique visitors were there, and what was going on with that. So I don't think we need to read through this, but what we'll do is we'll go through some, like, for example, this website, there were 4,000 clicks on that website with 1,700 unique people that viewed it. 380 hotel clicks, 28 different business promotion clicks, and so on and so forth. So this is pretty cool. And Lucas over there at Visit Boise is going to set this up for any of our larger events. So I think he's picked out 4 or 5 on that slate that I showed you. And he's going to create these links for us. So when we have a meet website, we can direct people to this so they can start tagging into the websites and find local businesses. And it's great, obviously, a data resource as we get to the post meet. So here's the same data that I pulled based on Lucas's report after providing him our info. Again, it kind of gives you a rundown of those same numbers that we showed you. Again, this was specific to that meet in August. And then it can tell you exactly, okay, what hotels were triggered by that link. Tells you exactly which hotels may have gotten a click and may have then gotten business. And then the next slide will show you actually businesses that were impacted. You know, teams came and they ate at a restaurant, or they afterwards had a party at Wahoo's or Top Golf, or ate at Anthony's restaurant, all those sorts of things. So the data is actually pretty cool. And as we do more and more events and try to get this information out, hopefully have more and more impact on some of these businesses and hotels we get through. So pretty cool. That's it. Questions for me?
I know we're going to be touching upon this later, but parking at your facility, I just so happened to drive by during your last meet.
What?
I think there were 3 or 4 buses dropping off, and they were actually blocking like the lane of traffic.
Yep.
And so I know, you know, to go north, I had to get into the turn lane, which I knew it's me, right? So I mean, I knew what was going on, but just kind of wanted you to touch upon the parking and the challenges and how you handle the buses like that. And
Yeah.
issues
So-
that it may have caused.
You know, the parking is a challenge we have a bit. But everyone's pretty understanding at this point, and we give them pretty clear directions. So anytime we have an event, we have a pre-event meeting. We do it all via Zoom. Everyone that's a coach, chaperone, team manager is required to sign on to that. And we talk through our parking situation. Our parking lot is designated for essentially our volunteers, the officials, the admin professionals. We have that dirt lot that we're using. And for example, that's where we're having our chaperones and our coaches park. Buses are asked to pull up and drop off athletes, and then they're asked to pull around and park in the Flying J or pilot behind us. That drop-off zone got congested because that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to pull up, drop off, and move on. But what happened is those buses would arrive 30, 45 minutes early, and then they would sit on the street rather than wait in the parking lot and ask for their coach to call and pull around because it's a at that point, a 20-second drive to pull from Flying J to pick up the athletes. So we actually had that conversation a couple times during the meet, trying to get the teams to help facilitate that and move traffic along. The surrounding businesses have been very understanding and helpful. Had a great conversation with some of the restaurants across the street, Fred Meyer across the street, trying to make sure that we keep their parking lot clear because we don't have, authority to park there. But we really focus on the street parking. So we direct parents to street parking. We actually rent golf carts and we provide shuttle services to all the parents. So we've got people out there kind of shuttling people up and down around Diamond TK and just trying to maximize the space that's out there in the area. And really did not receive a single complaint from anyone to meet about parking this year, which is great because we try to do everything we can to kind of minimize that. Definitely recognize that if we get too many buses in that corridor, it creates an issue, and trying to keep that flow was probably our bigger challenge this year.
And I then noticed there was like a food truck, I think, out front, and then also like a merchandise tent
We did.
next to the building. So a lot of activity kind of going on there. In a perfect world, you'd have some sort of pull around for the buses to.
Yeah, in a perfect world, if we get the buses to come in the parking lot and be able to go all the way in a circle, then we don't have to have them park on that street to drop off and pick up. They can pull all the way around. Athletes can get in and out on the property. Right now, buses can't pull all the way around. And it's really difficult to turn around. We have a T back there. The T is usable, but as soon as you get a second bus coming around the corner, we've got a log jam. So it's kind of a one at a time type of deal. So we've tried to keep buses out of that zone at this point. As soon as buses can go all the way around, which is kind of a long-term goal of ours, is to make that pathway all the way around. And that's not a huge problem because now we can have buses come in, drop off athletes literally at the front or back door and move right on out of the parking lot at Flying J.
And did you utilize the turf area for your meets, I'm assuming?
Oh, yeah. So we tent that entirely. So for the meet in July, everyone kind of tented on their own. They brought their own pop-up tents. For the meet in August, we fully tent that. So we contract with Idaho Tents and Events. It costs us about $20,000, but that thing is fully tented. That's where the athletes are. So parents are in the stands. Stands are full. All the athletes are outside in their tents. We call it the Athletes Village. We have massive fans out there and food and water, all that sort of stuff. And then as their events come up, then they walk through any one of our 11 open garage bays and compete. So the turf area has been a fantastic kind of addition for now with these events, and being able to kind of tent that area, especially in August, has been great.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So what is your position on the agenda item about a RFQ for parking?
My position? I think it's the Madam Chair, sorry. Look, you guys asked a few months ago kind of what one of our priorities would be, and it would definitely be to try to work on parking. I mean, we are not in any current position to be funding parking on our own. It's definitely a huge need for us. Anyone who's out there understands that we're definitely short of parking. We, at this point, really reserve most of our parking for our lesson participants. And so we ask everyone else to park in that dirt area. Our high school swimming started last week. So all the high school kids are now parking in that dirt area. I certainly have lesson participants using it as well. But yeah, I mean, parking's definitely a need out there. And if I had the ability to stroke a check to solve it, that'd be the first thing on our list for sure.
Assuming when you get rain and water in that area, you can't park.
Yeah,
out
it's a
there
mud
'cause
pit. We have to block it off. You'll notice when you drive by, we've got 3 boulders out there because as soon as if it rains and it's muddy, then we move a boulder because otherwise it tears the thing up. So we've kind of had to kind of bring in some rocks in there so we can kind of open and close it, so to speak, as needed. Hopefully, this time of year, thankfully, rain isn't a huge issue, but as we get into September, October, there'll be times when we'll have to close it off.
And I know you've had some people parking over landscaping and breaking sprinklers, and that's been a problem on your end, right?
Yeah, we've done a few things. The trucks pulled out of Flying J, always run over the sprinkler. So we've placed boulders on that corner as far as we can, really up to the corner of our lot as best as possible to avoid breaking off our sprinkler lines. But yeah, if we don't mark everything appropriately, then yeah, it's really easy. Car will just pull right over the top of that. And then we do end up with flooding in that area. We have to shut it down. So
There's one spot behind on the backside of the facility facing the north where people try to pull into the rocks there. This is what I was talking to Chelsea about. there's obviously delineation between the parking lot and but there's not a curb or anything to stop people from just pulling into the.
Yep, people like to park in their landscaping. We're trying to get a little more creative with our landscaping to create some additional barricades, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a great problem, but it's a problem I'm happy to have. It means people are using the facility and it means that we're busy. And you know, we find a way to solve it.
And a year in, any issues with any of the equipment, pool, is everything operating like it should or?
Right now,
any
everything's
issues?
fantastic, right? As you know, we had a problem with a small heater that was 100% a warranty issue. For some reason, that heater defaulted. The manufacturer heater sent out a new heater, so that's been installed. And just as a precaution, we actually purchased an additional heater. So we have a backup heater in storage so that if anything like that happens again, we're not waiting potentially 6, 8, 12 weeks. We can just swap out with the new heater and be ready to roll. So, you know, that's one thing we learned the first year. Even if things are under warranty, things can fail, things can have problems. And so we've created a backup of that. And heating the pool is the biggest, because if that lesson pool drops a couple degrees, the older kids can survive, but you start talking about mommy and me's or even the 4 or 5 year olds, we have to cancel classes. It's too cold. So.
How did it handle the heat, some of the most extreme heat, the building itself?
The building's been fantastic. Again, you know, we have these meets in July and August, triple digits, and it's comfortable in there. I mean, look, it gets warm in there. You got 600 athletes, and at times 500 parents in there. You know, it's not all the athletes are at the same time, but you know, it's a busy place. But the building really handles everything very well. The airflow, I know we complained a lot about the $2.5 million HVAC system. We are so thankful we have it because it turns the air over every 10 minutes. So, you know, we had a massive smoke issue during the August event. We had to put everybody inside because we can't have athletes out when the AQI is 200. Thankfully, the AQI dropped down, but we can put people in the building. That stuff can run through that filtration system every 10 minutes. We actually had our HVAC supplier come out, change the filters a couple times just to try to keep everything healthy. And everything's running, honestly, very, very well. So.
Yeah, and then your programming that you're continuing to look at, you know, for the coming year, it looks like you got some additional income that you weren't really expecting. You kind of see it normalize. Are you looking at additional programming, additional tenants in the pool, things like that moving forward?
Yeah, we're always trying to add things, but we're trying to do it kind of on a measured approach. So a couple examples, we are actively trying to grow our water polo program. So that's something that Chelsea's been working on quite a bit is trying to get more participants on that. We are now Red Cross certified to teach lifeguarding lessons. Lifeguarding was a huge shortage in the Valley this last year with limited opportunities for kids to take those classes. So we have started to offer those. And we're going to try to offer those kind of year round. So we might see a class pop up every, once a month or once every couple months so that there isn't this massive flood of high school kids in May that are looking for a job and have to get lifeguarding classes. So we're offering lifeguarding classes. We've got tons of kayaking going on there now. Kind of you name it. Anything we can kind of slide into that schedule, we're trying to find places for them. It's really hard during high school swimming season because between 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock, literally every single lane in that building is full. Either competitive swimming, high school, swim lessons in the other pool. We always have a couple lanes for lap swimming, and programming space between 4 and 7 is completely full at this point. So it's finding other gaps to fill it. We've got a couple physical therapy companies that come and rent space for us and do physical therapy out of our pools. Water aerobics, I mean, you name it. Anytime we can find a place to put an event or, a group, we're trying.
So forecasting, looking for this year, are you going to be kind of on target or above below? Do you have a feel for that yet?
I fully expect we're going to be on target. I think between our events and kind of call it getting over the hump on some of these expenses maybe that we didn't expect or that now better understand how to manage. We really do feel like we're in a pretty good spot right now as we kind of move into this full next year.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
How are you doing with the other swim clubs in the Valley?
Actually, we're doing great. We really are. We had that event that we had in July. There's 2 coaches, for example, over at the Boise YMCA. One of them is a certified meet referee and official. And we called and asked her to be the official at the head referee at our event. And they came out and were full volunteer for 3 days at that event. Both those coaches, the head coach, the assistant coach, came to that August meet and volunteered on deck in various capacities the whole week, as well as 2 other clubs. I mean, we're reaching out to everybody and trying to get everybody involved. All of the local teams across the valley participated in the July event. Every single one of them to a T. The August event, it was a qualification meet, so not every team had an opportunity to participate because their kids had to meet a qualification standard, and not all teams had an athlete that did. But yeah, everyone's participating.
So the rabble rousers that showed up here and whined are under control.
As far as I know, they're not bothering our operation at this point any further.
Thank you.
Good questions.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Ally and Carrie? Okay.
All right. Madam Chair, members of the board, good afternoon. We'll have a packed agenda today, and we've got a lot to get through also, so we'll be as concise as possible. Carrie and I are pleased to have the opportunity to share updates from our two teams with you today, reporting some fiscal year updates through July, and we'll start with Boise Center. So first couple slides, we're going to be looking at events taking place inside of FY '24. And again, these numbers here that we have pulled up are reflecting December through July events. On the left side, we've got our targets that we set for the building at the start of the year in terms of attendance, room nights, economic impact, and revenue. I made a note for myself to update the economic impact number. I know when we started off, seemed like a reasonable number, and we're blowing it out of the water. So we'll adjust that up to 41 million. But you see, we're on track, really good shape to meeting targets, mostly in that 60 to 70% range to target. And our fiscal year end forecast, again, looking like we're meeting just about everything. Attendance is slightly down, is what it's looking like at the end of the year, but that's mostly due to Festival of Trees hitting FY '25. If we're reporting by end date, festival brings in about 25,000 people through the building, and so that will hit in December of 2024.
Local events down just due to space?
The calendar is definitely limited availability. These are always kind of like our best estimates based on what we think is going to confirm in the year for the year. So just slightly down on the local event side, but that could continue to fill in. Again, we still have a few months left that we'll still be booking events in the year for the year. It's just based on what's on the calendar right now.
Some of it's the length of the events too can impact that. How many days?
Shifting gears to the sales team activities to date. So leads, we're at just under 200 leads as of July. That's down 20% compared to same period year prior, which seems significant. However, when we're comparing to pre-COVID lead volume, we're about 5% up. So kind of the theme, and I know we've heard this now for a couple of months, just some normalizing in the market. We're seeing, the leads get to what we had expected pre-COVID levels. So really nothing alarming here. We're sending about one proposal out for every couple leads coming in. That's about what we've historically done as well. Site visits are in good shape. We're going to see this number bump the next time we report it. We had about 30 planners here for meetings today live earlier this month, and everyone participated in a site tour. So that number is going to jump up about double, actually. Trade shows are up compared to year prior. A lot of that has to do with just timing of when we travel and when those shows take place year over year. But we are definitely busy and out and on the road. And then contracts slightly down compared to year prior, but we're going to dig into the value of those contracts just so we see what we're booking for future business. So contracts year to date, these are contracts that we've closed in FY '24 to take place anytime into the future. Goals for the sales team are in the left column. And you can see where we're pacing fiscal year to date. Everything looking in really good shape. We're kind of in that anywhere around 70 to 80% to goal. And we're actually ahead of where we were compared to year prior for the value of those contracts. Optimistically, I'm thinking our end of year projection for these metrics will anticipate us hitting our future booked revenue goal. And I think we're gonna be just like right there for our future booked economic impact and room nights. We'll dig into a little bit more, room nights and economic impact are so closely correlated with each other. So we're gonna be talking a little bit about what we're seeing as far as room nights and group block trends. So just to get a visual on the value of these contracts, this first slide, we're looking at future booked economic impact and revenue. Revenue is going to be the shorter blue column, economic impact, the larger orange column, and we're looking at a few different years here. Our contract activity for the current fiscal year, as well as 2023 and 2019. We're ahead of what we were doing last year, ahead in terms of revenue compared to 19, but there is a variance for sure in economic impact compared to those contracts that we closed in 19. The revenue, I think the team's getting better at forecasting, so that's a good thing. I don't know that, the contracts have gotten significantly more valuable. We just have done a much better job of forecasting. Economic impact, like I said, is really closely tied to that room night figure. You see, when we average these 3 years, FY '24 contract activity hits right around kind of what we would typically do in an average year. Room nights, future booked room nights and attendance. Room nights is the shorter blue column. Again, comparing the 3 years, attendance and room nights are down when we compare to pre-COVID levels, and that has that direct tie to the future forecasted room nights. So if we're gonna kind of give a summary to all these numbers, fiscal year '24, those contracts have had higher revenue value with sort of an average room night. Last year, the contracts, we were kind of closing more contracts, but they were represented by the smaller to mid-sized conventions. Whereas in 2019, the team was met with a lot more success booking those larger citywides, more the mid-sized business that contributed to that higher economic impact and room night number. I pulled some of the highlights that set that number ahead in 2019. We had 2 years of Pacific Northwest Clean Water Association confirmed. That was close to 2,000 room nights collectively. Botanical Society of America confirmed in 19, that was 2,200 room nights. We had Range Management confirmed with about 2,400 room nights, and 4-H confirmed for another 2,400 room nights. So Carrie and I will talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the market as far as group blocks, but I would say pre-COVID, there was maybe a little bit more of an appetite for those larger group blocks. And so we just had a little bit more success confirming those larger citywides. But we do have some solutions and strategy in place moving forward.
Are you noticing a difference in people who are coming to you as far as size of group? Are the larger groups coming to you and you can't house them? Is that an issue, or are they just not coming to you at all?
No, we definitely have interest for sure from the larger groups. Cody, Carrie, and I, Andrew, we've met with a number of the hotel partners just to kind of talk about what we're seeing and making sure that we're all aligning. Like, we're working on groups that they're interested in as well. And I mean, really, Boise's just enjoyed a really strong recovery. We're well past recovery, right? And the room rate has reflected it. Demand has reflected that. And so I think groups have just maybe taken a little bit of a hit. But just having the conversation, so we know like where can we align in terms of pattern and get the most competitive bid in front of a planner. We're definitely getting ahead of it and trying to kind of read what's happening in the market. But there is still interest from these larger groups, and especially as we see the new inventory come online, the AC element. I think things are gonna just kind of continue to evolve in that area. Highlighting some of the successes and the wins for the center sales team. Jennifer McMaster, she's our contract administrator, completed a SQL course that she took through Boise State University. This is gonna be a really nice skill set for her to have for kind of reporting and programming in Momentous, which is our booking system. Celebrating some of the contracts we've confirmed so far this year, Cellcore for next year. High revenue generating for us for 280,000. Clearwater is something I'm really excited about. This is a group, great neighbors to have here. They had historically booked about 1 year out, and we're excited to have them commit to Boise through 2027 now. So we'll enjoy partnering with them for the next few years at least on their connection. Solution Tree. Confirmed for next spring, about 150,000 in revenue, 850 room nights. And then Northrop Grumman is a higher room night generating event. We'll see them here in April. Lower on the revenue, just because they're going to be out in the field for some of their program. But we think that there's potential to continue working with them, bring them back for some future business. So this slide here.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Ally, while you're talking about specific events, tell me about the one that's going on downstairs right now.
The Albertsons event. So tied with the golf tournament that's happening this weekend, they're in like a concert that they're hosting tonight. Is it Bret Michaels? Is
Yes,
that?
yes, they have an act
That was
tonight.
announced.
So they do their corporate business meeting here every year as part of the tournament. They did their corporate business meeting this morning, did a breakfast, then this is their dinner this evening, and they have musical act, Bret Michaels. I don't know if anybody knows who he is.
6,800
Yes,
and plated,
they did dinner, yes.
and that's the end of it.
That is the end of that event for, yeah. Obviously, the tournament will still take place in Boise through the weekend, but the Boise Center portion, yeah.
Thank you.
So this slide here, we're looking at future booked room night pace. Basically what we're comparing is this time in year priors, what was on the books for the future fiscal year. So in FY25, you see we were down compared to where we were for 24. But we're, in terms of total room nights on the books, we're kind of at that pre-COVID pace. So for example, in July of 2019, we had we had about 30,000 room nights on the books. Looking into FY20, now of course all of those went away once March hit, but we're at about the same spot. Looking into 2025, we've got more confirmed room nights. The rest are just made up by tentative that we're going to continue to confirm for room nights in 2025. So again, just kind of reinforcing that normalizing. 2024 was definitely bolstered and I think skewed by some of those COVID rebooks, Daughters Up the Nile, but we're past any of the COVID rebook kind of anomalies now. Okay, this slide here, I'm going to explain just a little bit. So this is sorted by lost revenue potential, not necessarily what are our top lost reasons. Top lost reasons consistently now for a number of months has been just convention center dates not available. We also have client is unresponsive and just kind of, fizzles out. Boise Center cost is another one of our top lost reasons. But what I wanted to share with the board here, the team has started recording revenue potential for all leads that we're receiving. So this is going to be incomplete in terms of like the last 13 months, but I would say as of maybe this fiscal year, we've done a much better job of capturing revenue potential. So we're seeing a great deal of lost revenue potential just because we're simply not large enough to accommodate the event. I mean, that's not really surprising. Those large events that come in are going to have huge trade show floors, larger F&B events, but just seeing some potential if we had the square footage, maybe what we could do, or at least throw our hat in the ring. The next largest chunk there is going to be just dates aren't available at the convention center. That's right about 1.4 million. And then we've got kind of, if we were just to kind of lump together maybe reasons due to whether it's kind of the hotel block, too many hotels, or rate, or the hotel rooms just aren't available, that makes up about 1.3 million. So just seeing, you know, maybe what we have an opportunity to gain, whether it's more space or more hotels.
That's lost revenue for convention,
Conventions.
not including room nights, right?
Yeah, these are just for convention opportunities only. And then this is just showing what's kind of in our pipeline right now, the current convention opportunities the team is working with. This represents about 227 opportunities. Majority of them at least have some space penciled in, and then the remaining are in that just sort of idle inquiry phase, or we're in the process of qualifying them for next steps. And then the revenue potential associated with those as well. So some team efforts here. So we do have a promotion running for 2025 need date. So I'm going to get into the details of that in the next slide. And then just in response to some of the hurdles that the planners are facing with, you know, our event landscape with its center contract and then multiple hotel contracts, we're looking at some smaller and mid-sized conventions, kind of researching some similar markets, what works well, and say like a Madison, Wisconsin that has a small convention center with multiple hotel properties, that kind of thing, and see if we can go fishing in that pond a little bit and get some of those groups to rotate through. Continuing to look at industry events, we've got Pacific Northwest chapter of PCMA that we're pursuing hosting a chapter meeting with them next fall. This is an organization that has really great engagement in Oregon and Washington, and they're really interested in activating their members in Idaho. So more to come on that. And then this is a little bit more detail on the 2025 promotion. So we just have some holes that we're trying to fill, mostly in the summer months, May to August. And this is targeting those small to mid-sized conventions. So to qualify a group, it had to be a new event to Boise Center. RFPs received as of July and moving forward. And at least 150 rooms on peak. So really that's kind of a group that might fit in East. And then if they meet those, if they can check those boxes, they get to select two from kind of a list of offers there, whether it's a discount on AV or some hosted coffee. And the CVBs, they're doing a really great job promoting this through their partner channels as well, like with Helms Briscoe, Conference Direct. They sent out an email marketing piece with meetings today. We both have landing pages on our website, so we're getting this out to those groups that are looking for some short-term business.
Do you have a date on when they have to apply?
We left that open-ended. I'm anticipating if we're gonna get anything, it's gonna happen in the next few months and it'll cool off once the holidays hit.
What was the question, sorry?
Do they have a date when they have to book this?
Oh,
to
gotcha.
get the thing? And then is Far West happening here next year or no?
President's Cup currently, and we're bidding
Okay.
on regionals.
So that's the smaller one, is that correct? The
A
President's
little
Cup?
smaller,
Okay. In June?
June. They're both in June.
And then just listing all of our events here, if the board is interested in seeing where we're traveling to. So this is spring through the end of our year. Very busy travel schedule between the two teams. I know there was just a really great show. The team got back from Cleveland for ASAE. It sounds like that booth is very busy. And the next big show that we'll be all traveling to together will be IMEX in October.
Where's IMAX this year?
Las Vegas, that IMEX America. Yep, always Vegas. Yep. All right, I hand it over to Carrie.
Okay, so that one we got.
This one.
Okay, moving into Visit Boise highlights, just to give you a quick overview of the Idaho Regional Travel Convention grant program, and the process, as just to update you or familiarize you with the 2% state bed tax. There are 7 regions. This is a process that starts in April. We were just awarded $1,680,000. which was a 4% decrease from last year, which was a little surprised because we were up 2.5% by our region in collections. However, one thing that wasn't really made, but what became more aware for all of us was that last year was an anomaly. There was extra funds that were administrative funds that had to be given back to all the regions. So they kind of dispersed it evenly. We all got our full funding request plus additional. It's the first year we got more than requested last year. So really we're on par, I think, with what we would have been receiving. And you can see the things that we spend it on, all of our advertising, website.
Sorry, Madam Chair. This is 2% on every hotel room in Idaho.
It is, and how it works is 10% goes to state administrative funds, and then half of it, 45% goes into state marketing. So that's where Visit Idaho gets their marketing budget, and then half gets granted back into the communities in which they're brought in. And so our region goes from Mountain Home to McCall. And the big chunk of beds are here in our district, in the Boise, Greater Boise Auditorium.
And so if the hotel is within our district, they're paying 7%.
That's correct. Yeah, so it's 13% with the sales tax.
So what did you request this year?
Well, we had to take about a 200,000, we had to shave 200,000, because
So you
we
requested
requested 9% more than last year.
About 1.8 and you got 1.6?
It was about 1.9 that we requested, we got almost 1.7, 1.68. Yeah.
And Madam Chair, how much of your budget is that compared to us?
It's probably 2/3 of our budget.
The state money?
Correct. And that can't be used for administrative or overhead, except for up to 75,000. You can use for administrative if you request it, based on an AAR, they have a whole formula. But we typically use it all for marketing, promoting, selling the destination.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Wanted to show you our new refresh, our creative refresh. Americans are exposed to 4,000 to 10,000 ads every day. And so we were really putting our heads together with our agency, Orange 142, who specifically works on our meetings, our digital meetings campaign, and came up with, can we please be a little playful and have our message stand out a little bit in the meeting space? It's a little risky, tongue in cheek, where it's said no one ever. So a lot of these messages came from our customer advisory board. We really went after the outdoor hallways, open spaces, our diverse venues, and kind of a community downtown campus model, the great restaurants, the Boise Center food, the proximity to the airport. And so it is kind of tongue in cheek, but we have been getting a really great, I think, longevity. People are staying on our site longer, they're clicking through. We had actually over 1% click-through rate in July and 1 million impressions. And that's about when, beginning of summer, the new campaign rolled out. So overall, we've had 9 million impressions to date, and then 82,000 clicks to the website from the campaign. Which I guess I jumped ahead to tell you some of that. And then we want to show you the tourism economics. This is the very well-regarded tourism data research trend forecast that we get monthly through a subscription. And just to show you what you're looking at, this is the national group room nights on the books compared to 2019. They're still basing 2019 as the base model. So you can see that on a national level, some of these, and it's because it's weighing in some of these larger markets from Boise, some of the bigger cities, they're projecting that 2025, they'll only be at 93% group bookings of what they were at in 2019. We hit that number in 2022. So it's kind of showing that our market, and I think a lot of markets like ours that are smaller, medium-sized markets, came out, stronger from the pandemic right away. And now it's leveling off as the bigger markets have opened up. but they're still not quite to their pre-pandemic numbers. And this is showing group sales for the entire market, so it includes all the hotels and sports sales as well. So what you're looking at on the left are the city definite room nights for 2019. We kind of skipped some years to kind of show 2023 and 2024. You can see that the room nights were stronger in 2023. We know that's probably based on the Far West Soccer. And essentially in a market like ours, a medium, small to medium market, one group like that skews the numbers. So it's not like these larger markets, if you lose one group for 1 year, that, doesn't make an impact. It does impact our market. And the next two bars that you see are leads that were sent to hotels and leads that were sent to the center. Yes, we're down. This is year to date based on the same time last year. We're down year over year on the leads, the lead volume. However, if you compare it to 2019, we're still well above what 2019 lead volume was. And then the one thing that we did have a positive increase are the site visits. We've had 33 site visits, which we know when we get people here to Boise, that Boise really sells itself. It's really just getting them here. And I think that goes to a lot of the marketing. One of the things we did hear from our customer advisory group was that they didn't know that we would pay for a site visit. And we do, if they're qualified, we will bring the meeting planner in and host them. So that's risen quite a bit. And then 2025 for us is pacing up. I know it's a little bit different than Ally's numbers because when you look at citywides, we factoring Hyaldi, there's a lot of strong sports coming up in 2025. Besides the President's Cup, we have USA Weightlifting. That'll be at Expo Idaho. We also just booked 90-team baseball team over Memorial Day weekend. So one of the things that's great and complements the meeting side with sports is the weekend business that ends up happening and the holiday business. And that was one of the things we heard from hotels that they were looking at or that their need period were holidays.
So you said 90 baseball?
Baseball teams.
Where are they gonna just be spread out?
They will be, yes, they'll be all over. And that's the thing with sports. They don't need to stay, as you see with the aquatic center, they don't need to stay right next to wherever the venue is. They'll drive to that. So we are up 35% year to date for 2025. Some notable events. I know a lot of you heard from Cody and team about Daughters of the Nile in June. So we've had everything from 1,200 people in June to the Opioid Summit in July and National Extension of 4-H coming up in October, which I believe was a long time rebook, right, from pre-COVID. So that's finally happening in October. And then we've also continued our customer advisory board. We had a virtual in May and we're having an in-person in September. And then touching a little bit more on sports, I think I mentioned a few of these. There's also BMX, which does happen in Caldwell, but it's surprising they all stay. There's no hotels, in Caldwell right now currently. So they stay and then they travel to the BMX course because that's the course that is available for them. This is the second year that they'll be coming in. The U.S. Youth Soccer, we are putting a bid in for actually hosting the regionals here as well in 25. So June could be extremely busy if we get that on top of the President's Cup. A lot of soccer happening in June.
Where's Far West?
What is what?
Where's Far West going? I know, weren't they gonna go to Hawaii one year? Do you know?
They went to Hawaii this year.
Okay.
And then they were gonna not have the regionals. They were considering maybe just doing the President's Cup. And we were talking with Visit Salt Lake and their sports department or team on every other year, kind of working out a bid with them. And then they just came to us and they wanted us to bid on both the regionals and President's Cup for this year. So we already got President's Cup. We're waiting on the regionals. My hockey, that's a big tournament that takes place. They do the Grizz Cup in Salt Lake City. Huge hockey, and it's really one of the best youth hockey organizers in the industry. So that's coming as well. And then can't announce it yet. It's probably the worst kept secret, but a big endurance race will be announced September 10th for right before Hyaldi next July. So it's something we may or may not have hosted here in the past, and it's returning and will bring a lot of athletes in town. And I won't touch on this a lot because Ryan did a great job covering the aquatic center. But I will say they're doing a great job working with Lucas and on our team on this aquatic, you know, getting the hotel piece together, using the Play Easy site, which is where he got the data that he showed you. I know that we brought in the water polo, USA Water Polo during the meetings today live, FAM, and they kind of integrated a little bit with our, not FAM, with the industry meeting. And so, you know, there's some good opportunity that can happen that's still prospecting for the future. But that Mountain Madness is something they always held down in Park City, and that's actually pending for here. I know the swim and dive's a little bit more of a stretch because there's no dive well. So that's, again, getting them here. If we can get them here to see how easy it is to get to 2 different venues, and they'll fall in love with Boise. And so there is hope that there's still potential for like a swim and dive type competition.
I just want to say thanks for working with the team. It seems like you guys are working really well together to get information out to the participants, so that's nice to see.
Absolutely. Okay, and then hotel updates. As Ali said, we have been doing our meetings with the GMs and director of sales, and they've been going really well. But one of the things that did become apparent to us really the last few months is these bids that really fit the need for the community. Like we saw that it was, you know, these really great groups for the Boise Center, for the community. And we were, you know, for 300-400 rooms, we were getting 88 hotels that we had to, you know, 6 to 8 hotels. And it used to be where we could probably do a block like that for 3 or 4 hotels. So that was kind of the strategy conversation we wanted to have was, you know, where their need periods are, what they're thinking of, what they want, you know, what time of year, what's the patterns that they'd love. And across the board, it was pretty much, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, corporate, you know, we'd rather not consider group during those 2 days, but we will if we get a Sunday through Tuesday or, you know, so we did have some great conversations that were enlightening, I think, and opened us to where we can kind of tier even bid structures of this is one that fits all these 5 criteria of, you know, it's good fit for the community, it's great economic impact, it's good across the board, you know, would you be willing to work with us on a few more rooms so we can make a better package? And so all that's been happening, even with the new openings, but you can see now we have over 1,600 rooms downtown. When I started here, there were 780 walkable rooms to the Boise Center. Once the AC and Element opens, there'll be 1,900. So in 10-year span, there's you know, over double the hotel rooms in downtown Boise. So, you know, with them opening, that was all part of the conversation. Like, what's your strategy once they open? And you know, they're really open to the conversations that we had. I really appreciated partnering and going in on those with everyone.
With the ADRs kind of softening a little, do you think that they'll be more apt to open up potentially some room blocks moving forward?
We do. I mean, we've heard transient softening a bit. July numbers, we just got revenues from Idaho Travel Council or from Idaho Travel, and they were down 9% in July collections. And, you know, some hotels are saying August feels that way also. The August may end up being like that with revenues. So with that, you know, and looking at further out groups, hopefully we'll get more.
So kind of the overall theme is we're past the peak, things are just kind of reducing a little bit.
Yeah, normalizing the group, yeah.
What counts as walkable?
We do within a mile.
Radius within a mile.
So yeah, and it
You're optimistic about America's health.
half a mile. I mean, it all depends. Like, you know, certain groups we provide transportation for within a mile or half a mile or a few blocks. So it just depends on who it is. The other part, I know you had asked the hotels, there's, as far as what we track through the Smith Travel Research, there's 6,400 rooms in our district that are trackable, which means if they're a motel that's not reporting, then we don't have that number, which equals a little over 60 hotels. So that's kind of what we're working with right now in that district. Oh, and I just wanted to, here you go. Here's the
Oh.
map of who we consider walkable. We don't consider like the Red Lion or even the Courtyard. That's probably is a mile. So really it's under, it's within 4-5 blocks. Walkable. Okay, and so this is a little bit I mixed up all my slides, but this I should explain to you because this is encompassing of the whole community. So I tried to pull out 6 of the top lost reasons that may be more applicable to the Boise Center and to the Greater Boise Auditorium District, because we definitely have reasons for incentives, and I think that applies more to the sports market because sports bid fees do exist and people in other cities are paying those and we just don't. We'll do sponsorships, but we can't do bid fees.
Now, that's just a bid on the program.
That's just a bid on it, whether you get it or not. And
And
we
they
just
keep it no
don't,
matter
we don't
what.
risk that. We can't do that with grant dollars. So that is a reason, but I didn't put it up here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. So, but there are cities and markets that do pay those bid fees to bid. So the top reasons for dates not available at the Boise Center and dates not available at hotels, you kind of see it pulled out in the last year and then also in the last 5 years. And this is the projected economic impact. So it's not direct revenue like Ally was reporting to the building. This is based on community economic impact and the Destinations International calculator that we use. So the impact calculator. Board preference, primarily that means that someone from the board wants them to come to their community or they'd rather go to a tropical destination, right? So they're on the board and they get more of a say and they're gonna vote to go to a certain place. So just to clarify what that means, it's not our board, it's not your, it's the board of the organization. And then the not large enough, the space not large enough, we thought you'd be interested in, then hotel room rates. That's kind of bubbled up a little bit more in the last few years, as you can imagine. I think, we talk about this a lot, but, I think sometimes the planners have a little bit of a, boy, we didn't expect the rates to be like Park City or some of these other destinations, we were getting rates from Boise. So I think just the adjustment of what's happened here, it's definitely impacted, lost business reasons. We do have people that just won't respond to us. So we do still have, people that we just don't know why they decided to go somewhere else, but this kind of gives you an idea of why. Any
So
questions on
the
that?
biggest chunk is really, it's not large enough, right?
It's not, we don't have
And then
hotel
dates
rooms, we
not
don't have
available.
Kind of,
venues.
Yeah,
few of these could be umbrella
yeah,
under
yeah.
Yeah.
Because they probably don't have dates available because it is
because it's
large.
not big enough.
And then we already kind of talked about the strategy meetings and the patterns in the group. I forgot that this was in here when we were both talking about it. But happy to answer any more questions about that. What did come out of it is that we're gonna meet more frequently, especially right now, and go over these types of bigger groups that we wanna.
Is that your
Quarterly at this point, I think we're gonna be
I
with,
think quarterly or by every other month, whatever.
so something's changing on their side, we wanna know, cause we're a year to 2 years out for contracting, so.
Right. Well, not only that, but we can like just collectively look at the calendar together and say like, okay, this is when the convention center is available, hotel X, Y, and Z, like, do we just need to shift by a day, or who can give a couple more rooms? We certainly wouldn't like delve into any rate or anything like that, but it's just making sure that we're all like start aligning the stars just to put our best foot forward.
Absolutely. We have a great hotel community. So I wanted to touch on some community activations. When it comes to tourism, activations are about not just about promoting a product or a service. And people are really looking, we're finding this more and more in our research, they're looking for experiences that create memories. And even Ken Holsinger, I just saw his slide deck from IAVM. One of his top stats after polling 4,000 event attendees was that they're looking for immersive experiences that are important element in their overall experience at an in-person event. And so when looking at our sponsorships, we sponsor things like, Live After 5 and the Albertsons Boise Open that's here today. We do have, we look at different elements, but when it comes to something like this, The Glide on Grove, this would be year 2, and it really takes about 3 years to amp something up. So with something like the Glide on Grove, in a period in December and November, December, January, we run about a 50% occupancy, we do see the need to kind of keep a vibrancy that's happening. And so we definitely, we don't know costs or anything yet, but we definitely want to seek some support for this and things like this in our marketing proposal to you.
So you said that it's 50% occupancy and then average other times is what, 80?
60 to 70 to as high as 80, depending on the time.
Yeah, there's probably like 4 months that are over 80%, across the board.
I guess I didn't realize.
But it
you
gets
said
down to
50.
as low as 50 down to these winter
Those
months.
are the
Didn't realize
lowest
it was
months,
low.
and so it's that time where you really just want to, not for everyone, so for groups, what we'd love to do is promote it to any groups that may be coming during that time, and just have that kind of more vibrancy that's happening in the city.
If we weren't doing, like the St. Albans event that doesn't bring in hotel room night, is there demand in that month for something else, or is November pretty much down anyways?
I think November, festival is really great just because it falls over Thanksgiving, and November's got a lot of annuals for us between Derek West, I know School Board Association and festival. I mean, if where I could see some overlap with festival and opportunity to sell, if there wasn't a festival issues, would be at that very end of November, maybe going into December, where sometimes we run up against some date conflict.
But low for conferences anyways.
Yeah, during that week of
No, we love
Thanksgiving,
having
we would,
festival and.
Yeah,
over
that's a
Thanksgiving.
great-
Otherwise you think it would just be.
Right. As you get closer to the holidays, people just don't want to travel as much, or they're traveling with family at that point. So corporate travel is kind of falls a little bit behind them.
And I think we're removing the needle because hotels are definitely, they express interest in more maybe groups in November, December, January. It's just kind of a funny thing that we're sort of flip-flopped in our demand season, right? I mean, we're obviously very busy with like holiday events in December, but I think where we're moving the needle is getting those conventions in on like a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday, and then you have like the Thursday, Friday, Saturday for holiday events. So that's where we saw a really good deal of success in December of 23, where we had a few of those conventions sprinkled in with the holiday events.
And then how is leisure travel during those times?
That's when
It's pretty slow. I mean, that's why it's still 50%
50%.
occupancy. Yeah, so just reasons for engagement and things, we would definitely coordinate with the hotels and just kind of keep it going for year 2 and then have them continue it on after
You know, remember,
this.
I can't remember the number, but years ago, I saw a stat about activations, and once you surpass so many activations in downtown, that's what creates like vibrancy, right? I don't even remember what presentation that was. So it's all about trying to create those activations, right?
Right. And I mean, that is a comment that we get a lot when people are walking around our downtown. They feel that it's alive. I mean, they feel the vibrancy. They're like, gosh, a lot of cities shut down right at 5. And, I think it's a bonus plus that we have things going on after 5 here. It's not just a business market that goes home. Okay, leading into meetings today live, I'll just start and then hand it over to, was I gonna start?
Yes.
Or you start,
Yep.
okay, yeah, start and hand it over to, back over to Ally. So every couple of years, we've been bringing in these industry events, and they are a mega fan for us, a mega familiarization trip. So we cannot typically do both in one season. 34 planners came in with 41 suppliers. And then our individual, like Boise Center and our teams had 22 appointments with those planners. But they're really a lot of them, I mean, I would say probably 3/4 of who came here had never been to Boise before. So it gives them a reason to come to our community, because they're not only meeting with us, but they're meeting with 42 other suppliers. So that's why they would choose to come, maybe here on something like this rather than a site visit. If they didn't exactly have business for Boise at the time, they may just not come on a site visit, but they would come to an event like this. So we do look at these every couple of years, and we had some great partnerships, not only with Visit Idaho and Southwest Travel Association. We also, Boise Center, which you'll hear from Ally, the Hotel Renegade. They all stayed over at the Hotel Renegade. They did an opening, probably some great pictures here. They did an opening reception for everyone. that was up on the Highlander floor. They have a meeting space that overflows into the outdoor space. They were able to tour right beforehand. And then Meetings Today Live did interview UC as well as I know Ally and then Andrew from my team in addition. So I'll turn it back over to Ally.
So the convention center, our part in the program was mostly the education sessions, and then we hosted appointments here. Mary Michael and I were interviewed by one of their editors, as well as Carrie said, Andrew and UC. So we got some really great coverage from the event. One thing I wanted to highlight in the picture you see on the left is Sherry Huss. She's head of community for Freeman, and I know we've talked about that Freeman event a couple of times, but this was a really I thought just smart move by Visit Boise. They brought her in to give a lunch session to everyone that attended, and she basically did just a phenomenal job connecting the dots of how to execute that campus concept, how they were able to pull off the multiple venue and really kind of like amplify that attendee experience. So wonderful commercial, I would say, for many venues and just the destination in general. Next picture here is just showing you some of the appointments. We used Room 400 for appointments and hosted a couple meals here as well. And the team just did a really, really great job rolling out the red carpet for Meetings Today and the planners and suppliers that attended.
Where did the attendees come from?
All over.
Right,
So to qualify, they had to have potential business for the West region. And so I think on the intro slide there, the planners that were here collectively represented about 22,000 potential room nights of, future business. So Meetings Today it was like, so they were the entity that qualified all the planners. Grove Hotel, again, they're always just a really wonderful partner in these events, a great team player. They hosted one of the breakfasts in the morning, and I will say the itinerary for this event was just jam-packed. I think they got the group started at 7 a.m. each day and went through the evening functions. And what we were really excited about for Meetings Today is they get the group out into the community. You're not just like stuck in a hotel for the entire program. So it's a really great, just kind of all-encompassing experience for whatever destination is hosting it. TMN Events was also a wonderful partner. They hosted one of the evening receptions. This was at Hap Hap Lounge, the new event space. That's bar really above Treefort Music Hall. Just some photos from that event as well. And then finally, the excursions. Carrie, you want to talk about that?
This is one thing I think that really sets us apart from other destinations, that we can offer these outdoor unique experiences. So we had two different choices. They could go whitewater rafting on the Payette or wine tasting. And I'd say more people definitely
don't
chose
mix
the
them.
rafting, which they were scared. There were a lot of first timers out there, and then it was the experience of a lifetime, right? So I talk about making memories and having those experiences, and especially something that could scare you and push you a little bit to grow. They definitely came back all smiles and happy and energized.
I
for
love
sure.
like the dichotomy of the events, like you can just enjoying a sip of wine or like making your way through some white water there. Yeah, I think the group, whatever activity they did, they had a wonderful experience. And then just to close us out here, some of the things that both teams are working on right now, a discovery visit to Spokane, just to kind of look at our comp set there. We'll be checking out some venues. So their infrastructure, lodging, and the plan is to meet with the DMO and the convention center leadership. Cody, Carrie, Andrew, and I are looking at some dates to make that visit happen in September. And then 2025 in-market events, we kind of have back to our usual lineup with Treefort FAM, Summer FAM, and then Customer Advisory Board. And then just a little teaser is what we're looking at in 2026. Currently engaging with smart meetings, which is something that we've typically traveled to, potential to bring them here to Boise. So we'll have more to share on that. And then finally, it didn't make it to this slide, but we are hosting with the CBB, with Visit Boise and Boise Meeting Pros and Alhi. We're bringing in Alhi's president and CEO, Michael Dominguez. Alhi is Associated Luxury Hotels International. And he's giving he does a really great job of just kind of giving a state of the industry and future outlook. Really well respected in the hospitality and convention events.
Was he with MGM?
He was,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. He speaks a lot to meeting planners,
Yeah.
but for this, it's gonna be more trends. And it's if you're able to make it.
Yeah, so he'll be here Thursday afternoon up in room 420. I'm sorry,
This Thursday. Yep.
And then do you know the outcome of any of that meetings today? Anything for Boise out of that?
We have two
Leads.
potential groups considering Boise, Pacific States Fisheries and Rocky Mountain Modern Language Association, looking at I believe both are in 2026.
Any questions? Update?
Thank you.
Right. Guys, you're up. We were.
First of all, Pat would like to send his apologies. He planned until last night to be here, and got called by the governor's office to a water meeting in Twin. So he's in Twin, he's up with me. You'd think August would be kind of quiet in the legislative world, but it's anything but. The five incumbents that lost in the primary in the Senate, one of them was Chuck Winder, so that sent leadership into a complete upheaval. There's four people right now vying for the speaker or the pro tem of the Senate, which will make all the committee assignments, all the chairman assignments. So right now the Senate is disarray. In the House, 10 people lost, 6 people retired. We're confident that Mike Moyle will remain speaker and Jason Monks will be the majority leader, but there's still going to be a number of reassignments at the chair level and the committee level. So it will be an exciting session. And then put on top of that, this will be the first year in a long time we don't have a massive surplus. The surplus is going to be like 50 million. So there'll be a lot of tug of wars going on money. The legislature believes that they have been, school choice has been endorsed by the voters. So we're going to see a school choice bill that'll have a price tag associated with it. Don't know what that's going to be like. We'll also see some water legislation, and we've had a water discussion in the state for the last few years and really hyped up in the last few months. And that's why Pat's in Twin Falls. Other legislation that's coming, there'll be urban renewal legislation probably, some immigration legislation, some campaign and finance reform legislation probably come. In the executive branch, there's been a few reassignments. The chief counsel left and Andy Snook is filling in for him in the interim. And then Alex Adams, who was the director of financial management, left that post and got named to be head of health and welfare. And Alex was a big personality in the state house. He got involved with all the legislation. And so it'll be interesting to see who fills that void. Lori Wolf took his place as the finance director at Department of Financial Management. Brady Hall left, the chief counsel for the governor, got replaced by Andy Snook in the interim. And there's been a few others, but it's been an exciting summer, the world of politics in Idaho. So you look like you have questions.
Exciting is bad.
You never know. It'll keep us going. So it's just we won't know until December, because that's when the organizational meetings occur that'll lay out the chairman. And so it'll be a busy December and January for sure.
So urban renewal, said,
That's one of Mike Moyle's hot issues. So I expect there'll be some urban renewal legislation to get rid of it.
To get rid of it.
I mean, he proved last year that he's not afraid to undo things. If you look at the State Street
ITD building, University of Phoenix. He's not afraid to take them on, and urban renewals, one he's had it on the top of his list. He likes tax cuts. He's an energetic guy. Yeah. I think we'll see all that. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, is there a role for the legislature in the open initiatives fight?
Well, I might have to defer to Phil, but they spent a lot of time not too long ago creating the system we have today. And several of those people are still there, including Mike Moyle. So one scenario that you talked about is if the initiative passed, instead of a top 4 ranked choice voting, they would modify it to the top 2 if it passed, or a complete repeal, because there's a lot of people that don't like it. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. That's not only in Idaho, that's across, there's 6 or 7 states in the same boat right now. Most of them are Western states. But it gets debated loudly and excitedly on both sides. And in some states like California, the Democrats don't like it. Idaho, the Republicans don't like it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or
As session gets going, we'll bring them back. for
Yeah,
an
keep us up to
update again,
date.
but, yeah.
Bill, is there anything I missed?
No, sir.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Exciting will be a good.
Okay, Cody?
Yeah, the next couple agenda items, next one for D is the Pine Street Group Agreement. And I think Mike used a better word than agreement. It's more of an assignment. And you've got it actually, the agreement in your stack of papers for each board member there. What this is just the ability to kind of take a look at data, in particular, as you can see, the lost business reasons as we continue to see not enough space in Boise Center or the availability of dates. We continue, myself and Chase continued, it's probably hit a fever pitch since the most recent article from Boise Dev about the potential for expansion. Getting people reaching out, hey, what are you guys doing? What's going on? And so where we're at is wanting to engage them to kind of work on an assignment that looks at the data. We will do the study ourselves as far as the CSL study or the feasibility study. I want to engage them to help with some of the stuff that's in this agreement here. And this would be on a time and material only basis. Again, I think they've got the experience and the right approach to looking at this data. Plus, they don't have any skin in the game from a local developer or not. This is, to me, somebody that could come in and kind of give us the guidance. And as you'll see per the letter, they're really looking to be a partner for the district in their approach, kind of working alongside myself and then assisting with Chase and me on the exploratory committee on what potential projects could become of the data that we're looking at, and then opportunities that we currently have that are coming to us and finding out which ones fits those, to then provide more information to the board itself. My goal would be is to get the data, then use that data to kind of glean what are the information that we've learned from it, engage stakeholders, constituents, hoteliers, everybody, kind of let them know what the data is, and then eventually present all that to the board to make a decision with some kind of guidance on, hey, this is what we see on this, if we were to go this direction, whether it's an expansion on the current convention center, a sister facility somewhere else, a sports facility, or the data could truly come back and say, we're not ready to do any of it yet, and we still need more money because the cost of things are going up. And so I think those are the 4 areas I see this kind of dovetailing off into would be the opportunity for those, or no project at all. But I think it is time, we're at the point where the market's changed drastically since the last time we did a feasibility study, and the amount of people that are looking at projects in the valley in particular for us to participate in. I think having the data for the board would allow us to make sure we're going and meeting with the correct people and getting the right direction where we're
And
headed.
so when would they come in to play? Would it be after you?
After I do the
studies?
feasibility study, yes, there might be some work prior or alongside parallel with that. But honestly, the next step would be engage the feasibility study, get that, and then start engaging them deeper with what how that works. Some of that's helping on putting together performas, working with Visit Boise myself on if we were to do a sports facility, what would that look like? How much subsidy would be needed, and kind of comparing us to other markets or other facilities that are existing that have similar structure. So just so that way it's data-driven decisions. You guys know me well enough to know that's how I do things. And I think this group is the right group. But again, what I've talked to Kristen about in particular, we have thresholds for approvals for dollar amounts that Kristen would go to. My intent is to start slow with these guys in particular, use them where we can, be very strategic in that. And then if the opportunity grows more, we bring them back in front of the board or make sure that the board is aware of what the additional engagements would look like beyond just this initial. So that is my ask at this time, is just to be able to sign the agreement on behalf of the district, be mindful reporting through the board, and then also with thresholds to the chair, making sure that we don't go up outside of anything there. This first engagement is going to be well under any threshold for public procurement or going out to bid for. So maintain that.
And then when you get, I'm assuming you're gonna get bids or proposals for the studies? 'Cause I
Yes,
think there were two that they recommended.
There are
It was
two.
Feasibility and then a financial, right?
correct. Yep,
So you'll get some of those, bring those back before the board as well?
correct. Yep.
Before we move forward, because those are higher dollars.
Those are high dollars. So those would, I'd plan to come back probably next month to the board with some costs for running those feasibility studies, get approval on that. So again, it's gonna be, this is just the initiation to kind of get the ball rolling and get Pine Street Group on our team a little bit in that way.
And so there may be just a few hours prior to
Correct.
getting the studies done, and then once the studies are done, we review them, have them take a look at them, and then that's gonna be
And, yep,
some,
and at that point next month, have the ability to tell the board, here's how I would engage Pine Street Group further at this point in time. And then every step of the way, just kind of let you guys know where we're doing with them. So.
have you take a look at the,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, this is effectively just kind of a framework to know what we're likely to ask them. And then, as Cody and you both mentioned, once we have a better idea of what it is they may be doing and what the dollar amounts are, then we, come back to the board that we're material about.
and I'm assuming they would just be billing from time of signature out, right?
Right, yeah.
All the stuff that was preliminary was on them as far as like,
Correct.
okay.
Madam Chair, I
Yeah.
move that we authorize the executive director to engage Pine Street Group for this purpose as laid out.
Any questions or discussion? Chase, you've been most involved with this, any?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we see the study first, we go through it, and then, as Cody said, we decide what they work on and that kind of stuff. I don't want to rack up a bill for something that we could all do. If it's something on budgeting, right? We can probably prepare something in advance and talk with them and work through it.
We don't want to pay, and I agree with Chase completely on this approach, and Pine Street Group is in favor of that approach as well. When I've talked to him about, hey, we could do the studies, like those contracts would be directly with you. There's no reason for them to charge an 8% up fee to
Right.
run a study that we can do.
Right.
The areas, and I know I talked to TM and others about this that and running a convention center, I want to still focus on running a convention center. So using them when applicable and knowing that, hey, their time and whether we're in the middle of budget season, hey, you guys can run with this work, let them do some of that. But I feel comfortable with what I've done with Chase in the past, that we've got some in-house abilities also with finance to take on some of this ourselves. That's getting information on the performance side. So using them where we think it strategically makes sense and using their expertise. But other than that, I would like to carry the pail on some of this to reduce cost.
I'm good seconding the motion.
Okay. Nice to have you on board, Chase, so you can apply your expertise. Okay, we have a first and a second, a motion made and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
And then item E on the agenda is an RFQ, as we talked about a little bit with Ryan. This is an RFQ process, which would be a request for qualifications for looking for a CMGC contract. Meeting with Mike and Tom Martell from Holly. We can go about this a couple different ways. One of the ways is just to go engage a CM and have them go on our behalf and go out to the bid and do all of that. That has some additional risks, as we would be taking on those contracts for the third party people directly with us in that environment. A CMGC RFQ process allows us to kind of go out and find qualifications for somebody to manage on our behalf, and then they would go out and all the contracts are done with that GC or CM directly. And there's a little bit of additional cost that you're paying there, but the risk of if you have an issue with a third party, it's dealt with by the CMGC versus us directly or having to get in the middle there. So there's a little bit of, you pay a little bit more, but your risk is lower.
potentially.
Potentially, yep. And I think that was the recommendation as per meeting with Tom and Mike, was to go down that road based on this project in particular. So my ask to the group is to put out an RFQ, which is a posting inside of paper, public notice that we're looking for qualifications to go into a quote for concrete work at the site for the aquatic center and finishing off that parking lot. I've had some high level numbers just put together from a GC in particular that was interested in, hey, when we were talking about it. And I have some estimated dollar amounts. I think those dollar amounts are higher than what we get it back when we go through this process. So at this time, my ask is just to post the RFQ. There's really no cost besides posting in the paper at that time that's associated with that. And then time and material or time that we would take from the labor side, from the center side would be the only cost that's associated. And then for next month, have who those qualified bidders would be, or those qualification people that responded to that RFQ, and present an option and a recommendation to
And
the
they'd be
board.
presenting cost at
Correct.
that point in time as well as far as
That is the
timeline.
intent, yeah. Would be
So
simple
really,
as-
this is just to get more information
Correct.
to make a decision moving forward,
Yep.
right?
And I know there's been a discussion on the board, and I'll just, with Ryan in particular, I had a direct conversation with him about this. Now, while parking's definitely, they would love to see it fixed, he said it's so far down their priority list.
That's not what he said today.
What do you mean?
He said it was a big issue. It's a big problem, a big safety problem, and perhaps a issue with.
I heard him say it's a big issue, but what I also heard in my direct meeting with him was, as far as their priorities, it would fall way down the list of things that they were looking to get accomplished on site. So they're not really interested in adding more to their bill. And he also stated that today about it. I'm not sure if they could take on additional cost. So one option would be through the agreement with ICA, is if we go down this road, we could look at, by our agreement, increasing their rent and doing that. I'm not sure that would be in the best interest of ICA right now or the district, and that's up to the board to decide. My recommendation is just looking at this from we're the owner of the facility. We own the building, we own the land, and making this accessible for emergency egress in and out. This is finishing off the project and the site to the degree I think that it probably needed to be. But I'm open to this ultimately as a board discussion and decision. That's just kind of where I stand currently, is saying, let's take this on as a capital item, in particular from the district, to increase the value of that property and the better egress for just the daily use, the use for larger events, and then emergency egress vehicles getting in and out of the site easier as well.
But we're not deciding that today.
No,
RFQ would give you more information, find out timeline and additional cost.
and then the board can
Then
decide
the board
how.
can decide if we want to move forward, and if so,
Correct.
how,
Yep.
right?
Correct.
And if we wanted to tack it on to ICA's bill, then we would probably have to get approval from them, because that would be increasing their rent, right?
Correct.
Okay,
We may have some avenues in there per the agreement to enforce that on its own, but
Okay.
not
yeah,
not sure 100% on that. So
because right now we don't know the price.
there's some language inside the agreement that talks about if we do capital increases, we can increase the
Right,
rent.
right.
Does this fall under a capital improvement? Or, I mean, I think it does to a certain degree, but also is it needed or is it a nice to have, I think is the question.
Wait a minute. Excuse me,
Yeah.
Madam Chair. If you're spending $500,000 on a parking lot, how in the world can it be anything other than capital?
Oh, no, it is, I guess, you're right. I mean, I look at and so, yes, it is capital. I'm looking at a capital need from a building as in, hey, there's a roof or a carpet replacement or something needed from that side. So this is more like, I guess would say it's a capital, it's a nice to have versus a need to have. But yes, it is capital, so I misspoke there. That's correct.
And the deal is, we come up with the capital and they pay rent. And the formula for the rent is the capital we spend at 5%. So I'm just wondering why we want to put off the discussion with ICA. If they're not willing to participate, you're gonna have to.
I think the one thing right now, we don't know exact cost,
Yeah.
right?
We have that number early on from the GC was like 480, but we think that's high. So yes, you're to your point, that 500,000 number is where I think you're using that number coming from. But ultimately, yeah, no, this is a discussion and decision by the board. I'll give my recommendation, and that's pretty much where I come from. And also just knowing where they're at from an operating standpoint. That's what I heard from him in my meeting earlier, was not sure it would be their top priority by any means. So
Financially,
financially correct.
financially, not necessarily needs-based, right? It would help them a lot,
Yes.
needs-based as far as just experience at the venue, but financially, where they're gonna be putting their dollars, that's what I'm hearing, right? You've got is that where they want to put their dollars right now? It sounds like probably not, but is it a problem? Yeah, it is, right? So
That's a better way
that's
to
what I'm,
probably
right?
verbalize that, so thank
That's kind of what I'm hearing
Well,
from
Madam
them.
Chair, where I'm coming from is the district has been exceedingly generous with ICA at every turn. And it's worked. And they told us today it's all going well. It's working beautifully, plenty of cash. So if we expand it, I think we should do it within the agreement. Whether it's 480,000 or 840,000. It's for capital improvement and if we front it, their rent goes up. That's all.
Are you running numbers, Chase? Yeah.
It's another $2,100 a month at 500 grand. At 5%.
Oh, we gotta get the,
We gotta get the numbers.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry for
And
this
that's-
RFQ, so.
And that's kind of where I'm more about more information. So I think that the more information we have, the better decision we can make. And this isn't really costing us money besides the cost of maybe posting it somewhere, right? So then once and there's no obligation to do an RFQ, right? It's not,
No, we're not
obligating-
committing anything by going, seeking an RFQ, no.
Yeah, so this is really just getting more information about timeline and cost, and then we can make a decision better, I think we can make a better decision based off of that, in my opinion.
Madam Chair, I move that we authorize the executive director to post the RFQ.
And what, do you have a date on that, when it would?
I'm out
when we
next
could get
week
the
on
information
vacation,
back?
so it'd probably be 1st of September right after when we post, but
So you
maybe
think
I
that
can
we
get it
could-
by the end of this week posted, so
Well, we could potentially have information by next board meeting.
yes.
Okay.
We gotta post for 2 weeks, so it'd be cutting up against that.
If you're looking tight. Okay,
Tight.
so September or October?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor of posting the RFQ? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Everybody,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
all right, okay. See no other business before the board, meeting is adjourned.